can't sleep? Reddit's weirdest stories, whispered tales, and endless rabbit holes are the secret sleep hack you need. Let's find the most relaxing and bizarre threads to knock you out fast. 1. My fiancée told me she was going on a girls' trips, so I had her plane ticket redirected. If you only read the title, I might sound like a controlling jerk. But I promise you, I'm not. I've been with my fiancée Rachel for 3 years. We got engaged 6 months ago, and everything seemed perfect till I started noticing little things. Sudden late-night meetings, a new password on her phone, and the biggest red flag, a girls' trip she was oddly secretive about. I wasn't the jealous type, but something didn't sit right. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked our shared airline account. Turns out, her girls' trip was actually a solo ticket to a tropical resort booked under her name and another man's. I recognized his name, a friend from work. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I got to planning. I quietly cancelled her ticket and rebooked it to her parents' house. Same departure time, just a very different destination. I also compiled all the evidence screenshots, texts I found on her old tablet, and even a few Venmo transactions that made things obvious. The day of the trip arrived. I drove her to the airport, kissed her goodbye, and watched as she confidently walked inside. I had one of my friends tail her to see the moment she realized she wasn't heading to paradise with her affair partner. Her first call came 20 minutes later. I ignored it. The frantic texts followed. Rachel, why is my ticket wrong? Rachel, where are my bags? Rachel, did you do this? I didn't reply. Instead, I group texted her, her parents, and her older brother with a simple message. Hey, Rachel's on her way to see you. She has something important to explain. Check your emails for the full story. Hope she has a great stay. Then, I blocked her number. I don't know how things went when she landed, but judging by the 100 missed calls from her and a few from her mum, I'd say it wasn't pretty. Meanwhile, I changed the locks, packed up her things, and had them delivered to her parents' place. I spent that weekend with my best friends, having the celebratory drinks I didn't know I needed. So yeah, Rachel did go on a trip, just not the one she planned. 2. I found a hidden room in my apartment, and my landlord had no idea it existed. I moved into my current apartment about 6 months ago. It's an old building in a city where quirky basically means falling apart, but with character. The rent was cheap, the location was good, and the place had these weird old-school built-in closets and thick walls. About a month ago, I was rearranging my bedroom and decided to finally deal with this awkward, nailed-shut panel in the back of my closet. Curiosity got the better of me, so my boyfriend grabbed a hammer and pried it open. Behind it another wall, but the wall sounded hollow. I tapped around and found a loose section. After some serious effort and a lot of dust, my boyfriend managed to break through. Behind the wall was a tiny, windowless room, maybe the size of a large walk-in closet. It was empty except for an old wooden chair and a stack of yellowed newspapers from the 1970s. I freaked out a little but eventually called my landlord to ask about it. He was just as surprised as I was. He'd owned the building for like 20 years and had no idea there was a hidden room. He came over, checked it out, and we both just stood there, weirded out but also kind of fascinated. I ended up cleaning out the space and turning it into a reading nook. However, I still wonder who built the room and why they sealed it up. 3. I discovered I could smell cancer as a child. Anyone else out there have this quirk? My relative is still alive and kicking, so no sad stuff. However, when I was young, I would spend nearly every week with her. She was just very sweet and doted on me a lot, which was a stark contrast to my tumultuous home life, so I loved staying with her. When I was around maybe like 6 to 8, I went to her house after going on vacation and she smelled so bad. As a child, just being a child, I was honest. She seemed hurt and took a shower, but the smell didn't leave. I hate to admit it, but I was so upset as a kid about the smell that I didn't want her to cook for me. The smell was just too much, and I have germophobic tendencies. In my child mind, the smell would get near my food and I had a meltdown over it, which was probably really shitty to be on the receiving end of, in retrospect. A few weeks later I was back, and the smell was still there. I was relentless. "It smells like a possum in the road I saw one time" was the only way child me could explain what it was like to her. At some point, I think she either began to get worried and decided to go to the doctor, or just went for another reason. Thank God, she did. Turns out she had melanoma. She had a procedure to remove the patches and made a full recovery, and after that, out of curiosity, she asked me if the smell was still there, so I hugged her tight to get a good whiff, and it was completely gone. A few years later, around maybe 10 to 13 years old, I went to visit her, and the smell was back. I told her, "Remember when you stunk?" And she said, "Oh no, do I need to go to the doctor again?" This time, she found out she was in one of the earlier stages of breast cancer and needed up getting a mastectomy. Again, making a full recovery. Smell went away. Third time was melanoma again, I'm pretty sure. But every time she's ever had cancer, I've caught it by scent. I'm curious if anyone else has ever smelled it. I've always had a very sensitive nose. I'm also curious if I only caught it because I know her smell well enough to notice if it changes, like I could maybe only do it if I know the person's usual scent. For those who may be wondering, it smells like that sickly, sweet, rotting dead animal on a hot day. If you've ever had the displeasure of smelling such a thing, either way, pretty trippy. I have always been curious about it. No one else in my family smelled what I was smelling. Edit, fixed, some spelling and ease of reading. Also had no clue this was going to blow up this much, so thanks for all the supportive and interesting comments. 4. Younger co-worker won't take the hint. I am married. For whatever reason, this younger co-worker, 18, will not take the hint. We will call her Kay. She is a very attractive woman, kinda ditzy, friendly. However, I'm in love with my wife, we have been through everything together, and I would not give it up for anything. Kay draws hearts on things that are mine. She stares at me until I noticed, and she blushes and looks away. Always tries to talk to me, asking if I need anything, coffee, food, that she will make for me. Another co-worker was joking around about Kay being my work wife. Kay overheard this and now gives me things, signed WW work wife. I was talking about kids with another co-worker who's going through a divorce. And Kay looks at me and says, "I don't have much experience with kids, but I've always felt like I would be a great mum or stepmom." I've told Kay any chance I get that I love my wife and that she's the world to me. I don't want to make a big deal out of this because she could get mad and retaliate somehow. Why can't she just take a hint? Update. So, first day back, after posting, I went to my boss to discuss everything and found out that he had fired Kay that morning. Turns out, she had been stealing for a while, but he didn't want to drop her right before Christmas, so he did it the day after. So yay, that's it. Sorry if that's anticlimactic, but it is what it is. 5. I just found out why my wedding started late, and I love my husband more because of it. My husband, John Bucky, M26, And IF24 just returned from our week-long honeymoon 2 weeks ago. We call my husband Bucky because he resembles the character from the MCU movies. My Bucky is a bit more yummy. Yesterday was the first time we had dinner with his family since the wedding. My sister-in-law F20 is my favorite person besides my husband, which is why she was my maid of honor. She took me aside and told me what happened behind the scenes at my wedding. A bit of background first. My mother-in-law F48 never liked me, and she didn't hide it from me, though she did hide it from her son. This started from the moment we began dating. She would play nice in front of him but make nasty comments as soon as he was out of sight. At first, I didn't say anything to Bucky, hoping that, in time, his mother would warm up to me, but it never stopped. Eventually, I had enough and started telling Bucky. Bucky spoke with his mother, but she claimed I was misunderstanding her. She didn't stop. She just became subtler, saying things that could be interpreted in multiple ways. I don't blame Bucky. He did believe me, but he also believed his mother when she said she meant something else. When Bucky proposed, I thought that would be the end of it, but she only got sneakier. I almost called off the wedding because I couldn't handle it anymore. We had arguments, and it was frustrating. Bucky always believed me but didn't believe it was his mother's intent to be hurtful. Somehow, we got through it and started planning the wedding. My sister-in-law helped with the wedding planning and preparations, and because my mother-in-law was minimally involved, everything was perfect. From my perspective, everything went as planned on the wedding day, though we started a bit later. Bucky told me it couldn't be avoided because something important came up last minute. I assumed it was work-related, so I didn't ask. But now I've heard from my sister-in-law what actually happened. I was in the bridal suite, so I didn't see or hear any of this. My mother-in-law arrived at the venue wearing white. When Bucky found out, he asked my sister-in-law to bring her to his ready room, along with his other siblings and father. When my mother-in-law walked in and tried to hug him, Bucky stopped her. He asked what she was wearing, and when she dismissed it, he repeated the question differently. Why was she wearing white at his wedding? Why was she trying to hurt his soon-to-be wife? Why was she trying to ruin his wedding day? I think phrasing it as his day rather than my day got to his mother. He reminded her that it was his wedding too. She still tried to dismiss it, saying he was overreacting and it was just a dress. That's when he lost it. He started yelling at his mother, saying that he now realized I wasn't misunderstanding her, she was deliberately being hurtful to me. He yelled that he had been defending her to me all this time, but now it was clear that I was the one who needed defending. He accused his mother of trying to sabotage his relationship. When my father-in-law tried to say something, Bucky shut him down, saying he didn't want to hear it because they had stood by and enabled her behavior. Bucky then told his mother, "Because you're my mother, I'm willing to postpone the wedding by half an hour to give you a chance to change. I don't care if you go home, to a store, or wherever. Just leave now and only come back when you've changed. If you refuse, you will never see me, my wife, or our future children ever again." Do I make myself clear? The wedding was perfect, and my mother-in-law wore a blue dress. I don't know how to thank this man enough. His birthday is in 3 months, and I'm going to have to plan something extra special. An update. It has been 2 months since my last post. I didn't expect I would need to update, but here we are. First, I would like to thank you all for your reactions. But let me start by saying this. A lot of you have suggested thanking my husband with sexual favors. Guys, we are newlyweds. What do you think newlyweds do? All your suggestions. We already do that, except the threesome suggestion. That is a definite no. Sex is not a reward. It's a part of the intimate connection we have. I've made plans for his birthday. We're going to Las Vegas that weekend, and I've already made reservations at Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen. He knows I've made plans for us that weekend, but he doesn't know what they are. Now for the update. We are going no contact with his mother and low contact with his father. Sharon, my sister-in-law, has moved out. She's currently staying with a friend, about a 20-minute walk from us. The reason for all of this? In the weeks after the wedding, Pamela was cordial. She wasn't overly nice, but she also wasn't mean or hurtful. Until 3 weeks ago, we were invited to a family get-together, and everyone was asked to bring something. My college roommate is from South America and taught me how to make a rum cake from her country. It's called Viado. I'm not sure if I'm spelling it correctly. It takes hours to make. Bucky spent that time with me in the kitchen, talking, pouring wine for me, and taste testing the rum. He was there to see how much time and effort went into making the cake. At the get-together, everything was going fine until Bucky mentioned that he was offered a job that would require us to move out of state. We haven't made a decision yet because we wanted to find out what that would mean for my work. Can I transfer? Can I work remotely? Do I need to look for another job? While the offer was on the table, we hadn't decided yet. When Pamela heard this, she lost it. She threw a tantrum, accusing me of taking away her only baby boy. She was yelling at me, and I was too stunned to react. Bucky tried to calm her down, but she wouldn't have it. In her tantrum, she walked over to the table, grabbed my cake, and threw it on the ground. I don't know what happened then. All I remember is falling to my knees, repeating to myself, "It's just a cake. It's just a cake." I was thinking about all the time and energy I put into making it. I called my old roommate for a refresher on the recipe. I had to find a specialty shop for that specific sugar-based rum. I spent hours in the kitchen baking, and she just threw it on the floor. I could hear my husband yelling. I couldn't make out what he was saying, but I've never heard him sound so angry. After a while, Bucky walked over, helped me up, and we left. On our way home, he kept telling me that it would be okay and that we were never going back there again. At home, once we had both calmed down, we talked about it. I didn't even have to suggest going no contact. Bucky said he had already told his mother that we would be going no contact and that we would only resume contact if I changed my mind. We took out our phones and blocked Pamela. Bucky called his father, asked to be put on speaker, and told them that Pamela is not welcome in our house and that we are going no contact, possibly permanently. This means we won't be attending any family gatherings if his mother is present. Pamela tried to say something, but Bucky hung up. We haven't made a decision yet, but now we have one more reason to accept the job offer and move. Final part. This is not how we wanted it to end. The Pamela saga has come to an end. It's not the ending any of us wanted, but that's how life went. No, Bucky and I are not divorcing. We still love each other, our marriage is still strong, and we have no reason to leave one another. Before I tell you how it ended, let's go back over what happened in the last few months. Going no contact is sometimes easier said than done, especially if the other person doesn't agree with it. Pamela wanted to see her son again, and in her mind, if she forced him, he would eventually see things her way. So while we went no contact, Pamela went full contact, pun intended. She got a new number and started texting Bucky. Since his phone is on silent during meetings, he only noticed afterward there were already 20 texts. The texts started with apologies, saying she was sorry for what she did, but that we were overreacting. She insisted we're family, and family can work things out. Then, as he didn't respond, her messages became angrier. He blocked that number, and she got a new one. After a week, he had enough and called his father to talk to Pamela. He put her on speaker so I could listen, but asked me to stay quiet. Bucky talked to his mother and told her that we were going no contact because of her behavior towards me, his wife, and that her current behavior wasn't helping her case. She asked for how long, and Bucky told her we would resume contact when I changed my mind. That's when Pamela really screwed herself over. She said, "That slur for black people, slur for Chinese people, will never be fair. I'm mixed African American and Chinese." I audibly gasped when she said that. Pamela must have heard it because she asked if I was there. Bucky looked at me, and I knew what he was thinking. I nodded to him. We had just made our decision. Ignoring her question, Bucky said, "We've decided. I'm taking the job offer, and we are moving far away from you." With that, he hung up. I don't believe Pamela is racist. I believe she made a racist remark in the heat of the moment, but it was enough to push us over the edge. The next weeks went fast. Bucky confirmed he would take the new job. He resigned his old job. I arranged to work remotely. In a few months, my workplace is opening a satellite office here. I'm already on the transfer list. In a month's time, we moved to our new city. The next 2 months, we did not hear anything from Pamela. 2 weeks ago, we got a phone call from my father-in-law. Pamela was involved in a fatal car accident. The investigation is still ongoing, so all we know is that she was on the highway and there was a multiple car pileup. There were multiple casualties, including Pamela. We just came back from the funeral. Even if we were no contact, this was still Bucky's mother. This is not what any of us wanted. We were still hoping that someday we could reconcile. But life had other plans. P.S. Bucky's birthday was great. He's a foodie, and he was in heaven at Hell's Kitchen. Weird sentence, but you know what I mean. We even saw Gordon Ramsay in the kitchen. We didn't get a chance to speak to him, but just seeing him from a distance was a treat. 5. I thought my neighbor was a jerk, but then I found this in my mailbox. So I have this neighbor, Dave. He's one of those guys who's always grumbling about something. If it's not the lawnmower noise, it's the kids running around, or the weather being too hot or too cold. He's also notorious for calling people out if their trash cans are a few inches over the property line, or if they park too close to the curb. I've never had an issue with him directly, but I'll admit, I've always found him a bit insufferable. He's that guy who'll stand on his porch and stare you down like you're doing something wrong, even though you're just, like, checking your mail. Anyway, last week, I got home from work and checked my mailbox. I had a few letters, mostly bills and junk mail, but one envelope caught my eye. It was from Dave. My first thought was, what now? Is he complaining about my dog barking? But when I opened it, I was honestly taken aback. Inside, there was a simple note that read, "I've noticed your car's brake light has been out for a few days. Just wanted to let you know before it becomes a bigger issue. Dave." There was no scolding, no attitude, just a genuine attempt to help. I had no idea how long the brake light had been out, but sure enough, I checked it later, and it was dead. I immediately went over to his house to thank him. When I knocked on his door, he just shrugged and said, "I figured you'd appreciate the heads up. Doesn't make sense to have someone driving around with that not working." It hit me how wrong I'd been about him. Maybe he's not the grouchy old guy I thought he was. Maybe he's just a little more blunt than others, but still cares about the community. Moral of the story: don't judge a book by its grumpy cover. What do you think? Would you add anything to it? 6. My kids knew about my wife's affair and helped her cover it up. Last week, while my wife, 49F, was taking a shower, I, 50M, saw a notification pop up on her phone and went to open it, thinking it was one of our daughters, Maddie, 24F, and Alice, 26F, confirming what time their girls' dinner was. Instead, I saw an unsaved number saying, "I can't wait to see you," and then kissing emoji. I froze for a second. I clicked on the message and saw a short thread mostly confirming dinner plans for that evening and how they missed each other and once a week just wasn't enough. I knew what I saw. 29 years of marriage down the drain. Hoping to catch her in a lie before she left the house, I texted both our daughters and asked them about girls' dinner. What happened next broke me to my core. Both girls confirmed the dinner and said they were excited. I couldn't believe it, not proud of what came next. I turned her vocation sharing on with me in her phone and let her leave. I followed her to a restaurant and lo and behold, neither daughter was there, but instead a man I knew was her boss. I was so heartbroken. Part of me was hoping I was just a paranoid freak and my daughters would be there happy to see me. But no, just my cheating wife and her AP. I took pictures of the two of them holding hands and kissing. I know I should have waited, but I couldn't help myself. I was so angry. As soon as I got in my car, I opened the group chat we had as a family, sent them all the photos and said, "Glad you're enjoying girls' dinner together." I then turned my phone off and drove to my brother's house and asked to stay the night. I woke up the next morning to over 40 texts and 20 voicemails. My wife went through the cheater's playbook of excuses. I didn't even listen to her voicemails. I was about to respond with, "I will be getting a divorce. I recommend a lawyer." But my brother stopped me. He told me to meet with a bunch of lawyers first and make sure she couldn't use them. Instead, I just sent the group chat a simple message. "I am physically fine, but need time. I will come home when I'm ready." I then muted my phone, called different lawyers that looked to be the best in town that morning for appointments, met with all of them, and picked the one who looked ready to treat this as scorched earth as possible. Finally, after spending all day with lawyers, I looked through the messages and both my daughters were apologizing. My younger daughter, the daddy's girl of the two, was manic. She had texted me almost 50 times saying she never should have lied and hated it every time. Her boyfriend even reached out asking me to please reach out to her, that he didn't know what was going on but that she was on the verge of a panic attack. "Maddie, I love you, but please understand that what you've done has hurt me deeply. I need you to give me space." I sent it and within seconds got "A-OK, I'm so sorry. I never should have helped. I'll never forgive myself. I love you too." I didn't respond. Alice was different. We always had a good relationship, but she was a mama's girl through and through. She said she was sorry but that I shouldn't throw away a good marriage because of one mistake. This made me furious. "Alice, this isn't a mistake. This is a betrayal. From my whole family. Please don't reach out again until I make first contact." She never responded, but I know she showed it to me STBX, because she started saying that I shouldn't take this out on Alice. I never responded. I'll never talk to her again except through lawyers. This all happened 5 days ago. I'm still at my brother's and can't contain my feelings. I cry every morning and most of the day. I oscillate between complete, debilitating sadness and all-consuming anger. Losing my wife will be hard enough, but how do I ever look at my children again? How do I even begin to forgive them? Alice is supposed to get married in the fall. I've been paying for almost everything. Now I'm probably not going to go. I don't even know how to move forward. I am completely destroyed. Update. I can't believe it's been a year since my original post. Some days it feels like it just happened yesterday, and others I feel like it's always happened. There was never a before. My soon-to-be ex-wife, Julie 50F, and I are still going through the divorce proceedings. We were forced to do a 6-month legal separation before we could start the divorce. I moved back home after a week and a half at my brother's. I served her with the legal separation a week later to ensure I had re-established that our house was still my home location. The terms were absolute hell. We had 1 year left on the mortgage, so whoever was going to stay at the house was supposed to pay the full amount for the year. Of course, because she had been a stay-at-home mum 20 years ago until Maddie started pre-K. Her decision that I was against. She used that against me, and she was allowed to stay at the house, but we split the mortgage. I ended up moving into a 1-bedroom apartment. That's where I'm writing this now. Maddie and I made up somewhat quickly. She came to the house and refused to leave until I talked to her. She didn't throw a fit or anything. She just wouldn't leave. This went on for a couple weeks. Her boyfriend was annoyed. He kept coming over and hated the awkwardness, but she would just say in front of Julie and I that she would not return to their apartment until she and I were talking again. At the time, was really annoying. I hated being there, and Julie and I were fighting over the legal separation. But I eventually unleashed some frustration onto Maddie, and she told me how she found out. Apparently, at an actual girls' dinner 2 weeks prior to my finding out, Julie was quite drunk and let it slip. Alice tried to stop her, but couldn't. Alice and Julie begged her to keep quiet until Julie could come clean to me. Maddie was crying as she said this and told me she now realizes that her mum had no intention of ever telling me. The girls' dinner lie was the first time she had lied to me about the affair, and according to her mum, she was going to break it off with the AP and then tell me that night. We were both crying and Julie came in trying to defend herself, and I unleashed all of my anger. I yelled like I had never done before. Maddie even had to calm me down. She didn't just manipulate me, she straight up used at least one of our daughters. It was unforgivable. That's when I just agreed to the mortgage split to get Maddie and I out of that house. Maddie moved back in with her BF that night, and I found my current apartment. Maddie decorated it for me. Alice and I, unfortunately, are not on speaking terms. After the fallout, her fiancé called me and asked what was going on. He suspected that she was cheating. I told him that I had no reason to suspect that she was cheating, but that my wife had cheated on me, and Alice knew before me. Not sure exactly what happened next, but it ended in them breaking up. Alice and I, unfortunately, are not on speaking terms. After the fallout, her fiancé called me and asked what was going on. He suspected that she was cheating. I told him that I had no reason to suspect that she was cheating, but that my wife had cheated on me, and Alice knew before me. Not sure exactly what happened next, but it ended in them breaking up. Alice and Julie are currently living together at the house. Julie is openly dating her boss now. He left and went to another firm when I caught them, scared he would lose his job. I'm embarrassed to say I am jealous. Not of the two of them, they will implode, I'm sure, but jealous of not being lonely. Maddie has been encouraging me to go out and helped me set up a dating profile so awkward. She then called me a weirdo when my first match was with a 33-year-old single mum. We have a date planned for next week that Maddie encouraged me to go on, but I'm just not sure I'm ready to start over. I, 36 meters, have been with my wife, 35F, for 17 years. We have 3 children together. I was always of the mindset that I wanted monogamy in life, one woman to come home to and that I'd be with for the long haul. I had women try to talk to me over the years, but I never pursued it because I was completely content in my marriage. My wife was my dream girl, and I never wanted to hurt her. Over the years, there was 2 occasions where I discovered she was being unfaithful in our marriage. One was an off and on again affair that lasted a few years with her married co-worker, and the other was a fling with an ex she'd dated in high school. When she went to visit her family states away, I'm sure there will be people who say I am stupid, which looking back, I can't even deny myself, but after a period of separation with both situations, I decided to forgive my wife, as I never wanted to raise my children in a broken home like I had been, and I really felt like we could make it through it. We were young whenever the situation with her coworker happened, so I chalked it up to being young and making dumb choices without thinking. For a while things were seemingly okay. I never fully trusted her, but I tried my best to push back my doubts because I knew if I decided to forgive her, then I had to do my best to move past it and have a clean slate. It's been for years since the second time she'd been unfaithful, and I felt like I made the right decision by letting her have that chance to show she still wanted to be in our marriage. She was a different person for years, and we were happy and even had various things set in motion for the future of our family. However, 2 months ago, my reality was once again shattered by yet another incident which in my mind was by far worse than the others. I ended up receiving a message from one of my best friend's wives. This friend knew my wife a little. He'd met her in passing, but it wasn't like we all hung out together or anything like that for me to even worry about them. We worked together, so there was some times my wife would bring him up multiple times while we were talking about work. She would bring me coffee to work, and also one for him. I noticed when she did, she'd dress in more revealing clothing than she usually wore, but I never commented on it. She even convinced me that we should buy him a joint birthday present and take him out for drinks on his birthday. Just little things like that, which were obviously weird. But like I said, I didn't think I had anything to worry about with either of them. To my knowledge, he had a good marriage with his wife. He never spoke badly about it, so I didn't think he'd have any interest either. Not to mention, we'd actually been friends for a very long time, and I trusted him. I'd make comments in a joking way to my wife about how she took too much of an interest in him, and she laughed it off, saying she just wanted to have another couple to be friends with. She never actually tried to plan anything as far as to hang out with him and his wife as a couple. I agreed they would be good to be friends with, so again I never thought too much into the overly friendliness of my wife with him. Turns out I was way wrong not to, because I was met with multiple screenshots implying they were engaged in a full-out affair. I wanted to get my proof situated before I ended up confronting my wife, because I didn't want her to have the opportunity to manipulate the situation or try to lie her way out of it. So I started to go through call logs, credit statements, etc. Because I didn't know how far this actually went past the social media screenshots I saw. When the truth came out, neither of them tried to lie to me about it. I found out they were sneaking off to hotels when she was supposed to be doing doubles at work and he was supposed to be off with family. She said that she'd felt lacking in our marriage with both of us dedicating so much time to work other things, and that my friend was there and a nice guy. She said she let herself envy the way he treated his wife and wished she could have had that with me, but was afraid to tell me I wasn't doing enough in our marriage. So in her words, she made a mistake and that she didn't know how to end it once it started, and that my friend would leave work to go see her at her job, basically every day for a month, and she'd meet up with him on his lunch breaks. They were even planning a weekend at a hotel for the next weekend before the truth came out. I obviously cut ties with my friend, and honestly I have no idea what to do about my situation with my wife. Their affair ended and my wife apologized profusely, saying she just got carried away. For now we are living in the same house, because realistically neither of us have the means to leave right now, as her family doesn't live here. Plus, the costs of renting and houses here are absurd, and on top of that, we still have our children in our house, who are all still in school. She is basically trying to do anything to keep me around, including telling me I can see women casually outside of our marriage. As long as I come home to her, she would never hold it against me as cheating. I told her that's not much of a marriage, and it's certainly not anything I ever set out to have, but she is hellbent on keeping our family together by any means. She's even brought up how we shouldn't let our kids live in a broken home because of our marital issues. I guess my wife is under the impression that nothing could make me want out of this marriage, and that by offering things like that, she thinks will fix our marriage. I guess in a way that is my fault for letting so much slide in the past. I do love her in some ways, but at this point I think the love is more just from the fact we have kids together and that I've been with her for nearly 2 decades, rather than feelings of being in love. My self-confidence is low and my wife is out of my league, but still I don't think that's enough of a reason to stay. She claims she loves me and doesn't want to lose all we've built and are building toward. But to me, I just can't see how that can be true when she was so okay with running around with one of my only friends. I can't trust her. To me, her word is meaningless. I forgive her, then how long until she goes and does it again? I do think people can make mistakes and be forgiven because people are flawed, but this isn't just one slip-up. And truth be told, my faith in her is so low, I don't even know if there's been more instances on top of the ones I actually know about. My mental state is essentially a puddle of mud right now. I'm sure there's probably someone reading this calling me a dumbass, and I can't even argue that, but yeah, basically, my life is a shit show, and I don't know how to proceed. Edit. I'm not staying with my wife. I should have clarified that better. Me saying I don't know how to proceed is more talking about how to go about handling this with my children. I've never dealt with anything legal, so the stress of having to meet with lawyers, and also not knowing how to go about our living situation. I have enough proof that my wife couldn't flip the switch and take everything from me, but as a guy, that's always something you have to worry about. Thank you for your words. And some of you saying I'm a dumbass. Trust me, I know. Can't change that now, unfortunately. Just have to keep moving forward. Eight. My dad's deathbed confession. Really wrecked us. 3 months ago, this man, this ghost we thought had been dead for like 20 years, just showed up, knocked on my mom's door like it was no big deal. And let me paint the picture for you. Scruffy grey beard, hollow cheeks, dragging this busted, seen too much shit leather suitcase like it owed him rent. My older sister Laura opened the door. She almost passed out. Legit. I thought she was gonna throw up, or deck him, or both. 3 months ago, this man, this ghost we thought had been dead for like 20 years, just showed up, knocked on my mom's door like it was no big deal. And let me paint the picture for you. Scruffy grey beard, hollow cheeks, dragging this busted, seen too much shit leather suitcase like it owed him rent. My older sister Laura opened the door. She almost passed out. Legit. I thought she was gonna throw up, or deck him, or both. The end. Period. That was the version we grew up with. The only one we knew. The only one we believed. Laura hated him. Even with the martyr story, she never forgave him for leaving. She always said, doesn't matter how noble the excuse, gone is still gone. So when she saw him standing there, all she said, and voice shaking with fury, not surprise, was, "You don't get to be here." My brother Michael different vibe. He's quiet, always thinking, always feeling more than he lets on. He stared at Dad for what felt like forever, like he was trying to figure out if this was real life or a dream. Then just asked, "How'd you get out of prison? And why now?" Me, I didn't even know what I felt. It wasn't hate, wasn't joy either. It was like the ground disappeared under my feet. I'd built this whole version of him in my head, this myth, this tragic hero, and standing there was just a tired old man. For weeks, he was like a ghost floating around the edges of our lives. Mum, not having it. She shut that door on any second chances. Wouldn't dig up that past she'd already buried. So guess who took him in? Aunt freaking Bertha. She said the poor guy had nowhere else to go. So she gave him a dusty little room in the back of her house. He didn't argue, just nodded, and then, one day, his body just gave up. The hospital ran a ton of tests. Nothing made sense. His immune system was shutting down, but there was no infection, no cancer, like something inside him was rotting, ... Aunt Bertha was crushed, said he wasn't eating, barely slept, claimed it was stress, guilt, all those years of hiding catching up with him. Dad kept saying his mouth felt gross, headaches that wouldn't quit, like something was rotting him from the inside. Then, right before he died, he asked to see us. All of us, not for love, not for forgiveness, nope, just truth, or to drop a bomb and peace out. He could barely speak, but he was stubborn. Wouldn't rest till he got it out. "Dad, I was in prison, but not for long. Yeah, I was involved in politics. But they let me go after a few months. I didn't come back because..." He looked at us. "All three of us, because I found out you weren't my biological kids." Silence. My brain cracked. He went on. "Your mum wrote me a letter while I was locked up. Said she loved me, but she'd lied. She told me the truth in that letter. I felt like everything in my life was fake. So I disappeared. I faked my death. Hid. He didn't cry. He just talked. Like he'd been carrying this weight so long, and now he was finally allowed to put it down. And we just stood there. Statues broken. No one said a damn word." Update *********. I think it is too long for sharing in a post, just adding another part. After he died, things got weird. Not at first. Aunt Bertha called me 2 days after the funeral. Said she couldn't stay in the house. Said the room where he slept felt wrong and heavy. She swore she kept hearing something scratching inside the closet at night. But when she checked, nothing. Just dust and his old suitcase, still zipped up, still sitting where he left it. That thing freaked me out, IDKY. It was just a damn suitcase. But every time I looked at it, I felt like it was looking back. Michael opened it. That's his thing. So he did. There wasn't much inside. A couple of shirts, a half-used bar of soap wrapped in paper, some faded photos of people we didn't recognize, and this notebook. Leather-bound, no title, just stuffed with pages of cramped handwriting. We took it home. Dumb idea. The first few pages were what you'd expect. Random notes, political crap, names, numbers. But then the tone shifted. Got paranoid, obsessive. He started writing like someone was watching him, following him. There were pages scratched out so hard the paper tore. There was another note, dated just a few days before he died. One of the last things he wrote. That night I couldn't sleep. My mouth tasted weird, bitter, metallic, like I'd been chewing on aluminum foil. Aura wanted to burn it. Straight up tossed it in the sink and lit a match. But the damn thing wouldn't catch. It blackened around the edges but never really burned. The next day I went to see Mum. She looked worse than I've ever seen her. Like she'd aged 10 years in a week. She didn't even say hi, just stared out the window. Eventually, I got the nerve to ask her about the letter, okay? The one she sent Dad when he was in prison. The one that made him disappear. I told her I wanted the truth. About everything and about him and about us. About who our father really was. Or if he was even the only one. She didn't speak. Just turned her head slowly and gave me this look, cold and scared at the same time. Like she wanted to tell me, but her mouth wouldn't let her. And then she said, "What the hell are you talking about?" And she walked away. That night, Laura called hysterical. Said she found Michael in the bathtub. Not dead, not bleeding, just sitting there, fully clothed, muttering to himself, ... over and over. He wasn't supposed to come back. He wasn't supposed to come back. We checked him into a clinic the next day. He hasn't said a word since. Now it's just me. Me and this notebook I cannot seem to throw away. Well, sometimes I think I see him. My dad, in reflections. In places he shouldn't be. Like he never left. Like he's still watching us. So, I went to Aunt Bertha's place to ask her about it all. I needed answers. She let me in, but there was something off about her. Her eyes were too wide, like she hadn't slept. Her hands shook when she poured me a drink. She kept glancing over her shoulder as someone might walk in. I asked her about the suitcase. She didn't answer right away. Then, after a long silence, she finally spoke so soft I almost didn't hear it. I loved him. What? You ever wonder what Mercury actually does to the body? P.S. I wanna see the autopsy report. Urgent. Edit April 12th. Wanna share this little side story. It's a tiny branch off. My crush had a romantic date with Aunt Bertha in my room. Nate. My Nate. ... May he rest in peace. Aunt Bertha used to babysit Laura and Michael, my younger siblings, when they were kids. I was already a teen by then. Yes, technically, she was our occasional babysitter, always hanging around our house for her side hustle. If you've read about my dad's deathbed confession, you already know who I'm talking about, that Aunt freaking Bertha. Anyway, that's not really the point right now. This particular story takes place when I was about to start high school. Around that time, the most gorgeous hot guy I'd ever seen moved into our neighborhood, Mrs. Grayson's grandson, and oh my God, Mrs. Grayson was just the cutest, sweetest little old lady, like a grandma straight out of a fairy tale. I had my own little side hustle on weekends, keeping Mrs. Grayson company every Saturday. It was during one of those visits that I learned about Nate. He was staying with her while working on some big research project for his college degree. Something about hazardous waste management. Everything about him fascinated me. Well, his passion for science, his intelligence, and yeah, those arms. I started finding ways to accidentally bump into him, totally casual, of course. Soon, Nate began showing up at my house, sometimes with ridiculous excuses, like borrowing a screwdriver. Every time we ran into each other, it felt like I won a little mini-victory. Then came that Tuesday. I remember it so clearly. I came home from school, went to my room, and there they were, Nate and Bertha. In my bed, I felt disgusted, like I bolted straight to the bathroom, ready to puke. Pause here and give some context about Bertha. She was older than Nate, sure, but she was one of those women who seemed to defy aging. Plenty of women envied her for how hot she was. Me, I didn't hit the genetic as she did. But, in fairness, she wasn't really, or technically, my blood relative, just my mum's half-sister. I never told my parents what I saw. Honestly, if I had, that would have meant Nate wouldn't come around anymore. And yeah, it was super painful, but there was this messed up part of me that still wanted him there, even if he was totally out of my league. 5 days later, the unthinkable happened. Nate died in a lab accident. Something with mercury spill or another chemical incident. I DK much about the details. I DK anything about science or chemistry. But the tragedy didn't stop there. Mrs. Grayson, my sweet Mrs. Grayson, passed away the same day she got the devastating news. And Bertha, she completely lost it. Oh, I get it. Losing a boyfriend is rough. I know, but seriously. They'd only been together for, what, a couple of weeks. After that, Bertha started acting all weird. Even she walked around our house in skimpy clothes, which totally drove my mum crazy. My dad, on the other hand, became her defender, her protector, once my dad was gone and, well, supposedly passed away. Aunt Bertha stopped coming around as often. My siblings grew up, and with time, those memories started to fade into the background. Back to the present. Laura and I were sharing a bottle of wine one night when she dropped it. I saw Dad sniffing one of Bertha's lace pajamas. I froze. Laura, I was a kid. Didn't see the point. Thanks for watching. Hope these Reddit sleep hacks help you drift off faster tonight. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss our next relaxation tip. Sweet dreams.